Today, we preview the 2025 Washington Nationals with Brian Clary of the Locked On Nationals podcast. You're listening to the Bucko Banter podcast, brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. Cue music.
Rockin' 101s, yeah, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates, yeah, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates. Order steak by the plates, and in case after case, run my race at my pace, clear the grass of the snake.
We are back with our last preview of the National League, and we saved a good one for the last one. We got Ryan Clary joining us to preview the 2025 Nationals from Locked On Nationals. Ryan, welcome on the Bucko Banner.
Thank you guys for having me. You saved the best for last, am I right?
That's what, yeah, I think so, man. This is a fun team.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to this team, man. I'm excited to talk about this young talent that you guys are accruing over there. But let's take a dive into last year and then look at this offseason first. 2024, 71-91, fourth in the NL East. Let's look at the free agents. You added Lucas Sims, Paul DeYoung, help me out here.
Shin Ogasawara.
Shin Ogasawara. Okay.
Wait, he just goes by Shin now.
Shin. Okay. Somebody should have told me that before we logged on here. It's all right.
You wouldn't know.
Yeah. Jorge Lopez, Ahmad Rosario, Josh Bell, Mike Soroka, Kyle Finnegan, Trevor Williams, and Colin Poche. And then via trade, you added Nathaniel Lowe. And then via free agency, lost Tanner Rainey, Joe Lasalo, Ildemaro Vargas, Joey Meneses, Patrick Corbin, and Jacob Barnes. And then via trade, you lost Robert Garcia. Looking at this offseason, Ryan, what grade are we giving it?
Yeah, at this point, I would give their offseason like a C+ and a B-. And going into this offseason, I and a lot of Nationals fans out there, like we expected that big splash move. And obviously, you two are both baseball fans. The Nationals at one point in time, like they used to consistently be in top 10 as far as payroll goes. And right now they've been bottom 5, bottom 10, really since they won the World Series in 2019. I think in 2021, they were kind of around that top 10 threshold. But ever since then, they just have not spent, and they've continued to cut payroll time and time again. And so we were missing that kind of star piece. Like we don't need an Alex Bregman. You do need a Corbin Burns because you always need pitching. It doesn't matter who it is or any time. You just always will need starting pitching. But we were just missing that marquee piece. And I think a lot of Nationals fans, including myself, I expected that from them this offseason, and that just never came. Nathaniel Lowe was a trade guy, but like he's good, but he's also kind of been on a downward slope these past 2 seasons. So can he bounce back? I think that's a big question that a lot of people will be following. But to answer your question, I give them right around a C+. It's a passing grade. It was solid, but we're still missing that big piece that can help this team kind of make a postseason push eventually.
Yeah, Ryan, we talked a little bit beforehand before we started recording, and I know this division is tough. You're competing with the Braves, the Mets. I feel like they're kind of at that next level where they're about a year away or 2 maybe from maybe contending. I mean, you added Nathaniel Lowe, like that's a big league bat, and I know he's had a downward trend here the last year, but you also added Josh Bell. You bring him back. You bring in a Mike Soroka who finished last season pretty well with the White Sox. You bring back Kyle Finnegan. You bring in Ahmed Rosario. Like these are big league guys that can provide depth and experience to a young roster. I mean, you have to be optimistic about maybe not so much this year, but next year even, and the year after that they're ready to compete here after the big haul they brought in from the Juan Soto trade and others.
Yeah, it's like I do feel as if we're ready to compete. And, this is for a lot of Pirates fans out there. I go back to 2011 with the Washington Nationals. Right before Bryce Harper came up in 2012, the Nationals were a 500 team. I expect that this year. Like, I don't know if they're going to be making a postseason push. I'm not ready to put them in that bucket just yet. I mean, you mentioned you're playing the Braves and the Phillies and the Mets. Those 3 teams, if everything goes right, they should be postseason teams. I'm not expecting the Nationals to compete with those guys at this point. But what I do expect is James Wood, Dylan Cruz, guys that and C.J. Abrams as well, another guy from that Juan Soto trade. I expect these guys to really take steps up and kind of build a core for this team and that maybe they can compete in 2026. Like, I do think they will be competitive this year. They have gotten better. You saw CJ Abrams be an all-star this past season. Overall, though, again, I go back, like, if you just got that one veteran bat and another starting pitcher, like, it's a lot easier said than done. But I do think the Nationals would have been in that wild card conversation. Now, do I think they would have been winning 90 games? I don't think so. But I do think they would have been at least in the conversation. So at this point, this year is going to be about building a core amongst those guys from that Juan Soto trade. But overall, it's still not enough at this point.
Let's go through the projected lineup here, because you mentioned core, and I think your top three, at least projected, is your core right here. In shortstop, CJ Abrams; right field, Dylan Cruz; left field, James Wood. And then at first base, you got projected Nathaniel Lowe; DH, Josh Bell; second base, Luis Garcia Jr.; behind the dish, Keibert Ruiz; Paul DeYoung at third base; and then Jacob Young at center field. And then the projected bench, Riley Adams, Jose Tena, Ahmed Rosario, and Alex Call. Is this what we're expecting going into 2025? Is there someone else that's going to sneak their way in here out of camp?
Well, Robert Hassel III has actually been on fire, and I'm sure you guys may be familiar with the name. I mean, he was another one of those guys from that Padres deal. And in fact, when the Nationals made that deal, I thought he was going to be the first guy up into the majors, and he just has not been healthy. He has been just fighting an injury bug. He broke his hand in the fall league back in 2022, dealt with the lingering issue also in 23. Last year, had a great spring training up in the bigs, looked really good, similar to what he's doing for the first week or so of spring training here. And then he had a groin injury and was out like nearly 2 months. So this guy just has not been able to stay healthy. I don't expect him to be on the opening day lineup or even in that conversation. I think he needs a little bit more seasoning down in the minors, but I do think with the way that he has been playing, and the Nationals are certainly high on him still. Like, they still believe in Robert Hassel potentially being something down the line for this organization. So he could make a push maybe to be in that opening day lineup. I do think you're going to see some rumors about that, but ultimately, I think the guys that you mentioned there, that's what's going to be it. That's what's set in stone, and I expect all those guys to make the team.
How about third base? Paul DeYoung comes in on, I think, a one-year deal. Mm-hmm. Do you think he mans the hot corner for most of the year? Or do you think a Brady House or a Trey Lipscomb can unseat him at some point this year?
I certainly think Brady House is going to be the guy going forward. I mean, Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez, they have reiterated that Brady House, a former first-round pick in 2021 or 2022, rather, or actually, no, it was 2021. I forget that. They think he's going to be the guy moving forward, and he certainly shows that at times. Last year was a little inconsistent, but the year before that, again, injuries are very common with these Nationals prospects. He's dealt with it in years past, but this last year is just a little inconsistent. So far, he's looked really good in the first week and a half of camp so far. So I think Brady House is going to be the guy moving forward to that hot corner. But you're mentioning Paul DeYoung. You guys are familiar with him. He's going to get an opportunity because they brought him in late in this offseason or really early on in spring training. And he's going to be the guy to start off. He's going to get the opportunities there. So it's not going to be like that easy of a decision because just knowing baseball, and you guys know this also, the Nationals' goal is going to be able to, hopefully this guy hits 24 home runs by the deadline. And they can trade him for just some prospect, some relief pitcher, someone young and fresh to get in this building. So I do think they're going to give the veteran a chance. But if Brady House is going to be ready, he will be that guy. And Trey Lipscomb, you saw him this last year. He's good. He's a really good defender, but the offense is just not there at this point. And having a premium offensive position like third base, you just need to have a solid offensive piece there. And he just isn't that at this point.
Yeah, let's go into the rotation real quick. This is where you got another group of young guys. You got Mackenzie Gore leading off here, and then you got Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, Trevor Williams, former Bucco, and Michael Soroka. Is this how you see the rotation lining up for opening day? I mean, because you got other guys like DJ Hers who played a lot last year. You've got Cade Cavalli, Cole Henry, Jackson Rutledge. These are young names, former first-round picks that could make their way into the rotation at some point in 2025.
Yeah, at this point, I've got Mackenzie Gore as the number one. Like, he's going to be your opening day starter. No questions asked there. Number two, I've got Jake Irvin, really good season last year.
Yeah.
Fell off a little bit in the second half. So he's going to be my number 2. And then former Bucko, Trevor Williams, I got him the number 3 there. I don't love it, but I think that's what they're going to do to at least begin the year. And then Michael Soroka. I mean, they love this guy. They gave him a 1-year, $9 million deal, even having a 6 ERA last year as a starter with the White Sox. So that's promising. But then a guy who I really like, who you mentioned there, DJ Hers. I think he's going to be that 5th guy. He's kind of in that competition at this point of camp. And a lot of people are wondering, like, who's going to be sent down? Because, again, you mentioned Mitchell Parker, who should be in the rotation. But right now, they have promised Soroka that, and they have reiterated all spring training that he is going to be a starter. So he's certainly going to be in the 5-man. Then it kind of leaves it up to Mitchell Parker and DJ Hers. And from what I saw from DJ Hers this past season, he is the guy, bar none. Like, you saw performances, I think he went against the Miami Marlins, like the middle of July last summer, when like 7 innings pitched and struck out 13 batters. That's the kind of potential that this guy has. But his whole issue is that he walks too many batters. And so I think that's kind of why he's put in this like little bucket where it's like, if this guy can get his command, he is really good and has nasty stuff. But it's just a matter of if he can get that command. And so far in spring training, it has been everywhere. So we'll see what happens. But I think DJ Hers should be that 5th guy in this rotation. And I think he'll easily work his way up to a number 2 if he can have that command there.
Ryan, let's get into the bullpen real quick. At closer, you got Kyle Finnegan, and the setup roles, you got Jorge Lopez and Derek Law. And then middle relief, Jose Ferrer, Lucas Sims, Colin Poche, Evan Reifert, and then our guy Shin in the longman role.
Shin.
So anybody, I know like bullpen's always a crapshoot. It's a rotating door. Who has caught your eye this spring maybe that can make their way into this rotation, or do you have any other idea of how this is going to look going into 2025?
Well, I do think Finnegan is going to be the closer this year. I mean, he was an all-star this past year. Like, he's good, but you mentioned someone, Jose Ferrer. He's 24 years old. He's a lefty. He's not really like your prototypical closer. Like, he's not pumping 100 miles per hour out of the pen. But what he does do is generate swings and misses. And a name that, again, a lot of baseball fans are familiar with is Sean Doolittle. Sean Doolittle is basically like our de facto pitching coach at this point. Like, he's like the analytics guy in this operation. He's with the coaching staff. And Jose Ferrer reminds me a lot of Sean Doolittle back in the day. He has like this high fastball that's only in like 95 miles per hour, but he generates a ton of swings and misses with it. And so I think Sean Doolittle is going to have him kind of as like a little pet project for him. And I think at some point he will work his way into that closer role. He's really good. And last year in limited action looked really good for the 2nd straight year. But again, similar to other prospects, he started off the year missing the first couple months of the season with an arm injury. So we'll see if he can, number 1, stay healthy. And then number 2, if he can take that over. But Lucas Sims, another guy I think you guys are familiar with as well. Cincinnati Red. He's good. I mean, he had his first appearance, I think, just over the weekend, and I think he gave up like 2 earned runs. I think he may have walked 4 batters also, so it wasn't that encouraging. But I've heard a lot of great things about him. He's got good stuff, so I think maybe the Nationals could find something there. But overall, as you guys are saying, it's a crapshoot at this point. I don't know what's going to happen with the bullpen. That's my biggest question surrounding this team. And we all know pitching is going to take you as far as you can go in the postseason. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the names that were like on the fringe too, and I didn't really recognize a bunch. I know Mason Thompson's out this year, but one guy I did recognize because I had a brief internship with the Mets in 2017. Dyson Acosta, he was in the rookie league with us, and he was a great guy. I don't know how he's doing in spring training, but I didn't even know he was still playing, to be completely honest with you. So
if I'm being honest, I haven't heard the name.
Okay, all right. Well, put it in the back of your head, Dyson.
I'll put it in the back of my head, Dyson. I love that name.
Yeah. But let's talk about prospects. This team has acquired a bunch of prospects because of trading off Juan Soto and other people, and then they've also drafted pretty well. I feel like Mike Rizzo and co really love the college bats and the college arms. Who are some guys that you're really excited to follow this year, or also that could contribute to this big league roster at some point in the season?
Some guy we were mentioning earlier is Brady House. Like, I think this guy is true 60 grade power, and you're going to see that fly. And you've seen it a little bit this spring training. Like, this guy has power for all directions of the field there. I mean, he can spray it into right field. He's a right-handed bat. He can pull the ball. I mean, he can do it all as far as power goes. So he's certainly a name that I'm going to be watching. Cade Cavalli, again, another former first-round pick. He's missed the last 2 seasons from Tommy John. We don't really know what's going on. We don't really know how fast his fastball is. He's going to be back up into the majors at some point this season. Maybe he works his way back in. I mean, he was certainly a very exciting prospect. Like, a lot of people here in DC thought that he was going to be like the next ace of this team. He was showing that promise down in the minors, but he had a shoulder injury in 2022 after his very first start in the bigs, was shut down. And then 2 springs ago, he had Tommy John surgery, shut down. And then this past season, he had like 2 rehab starts, and they shut him down because he had the flu, and then he had dead arm. So he's another guy to really watch. But I'm actually looking at this one guy who I don't think he's not going to make a major league impact, but the Nats' second round pick from this past year, Luke Dickerson. He broke the high school record in New Jersey for home runs in a single season that was held by Mike Trout. This guy was a multi-sport athlete.
I've heard of him, I think.
He's good. He's really good. I think he signed a above slot bonus in the second round. Okay. I think that this guy is going to be like the breakout prospect. I mean, he's got the speed, he's got the power, and those are the 2 things that if you marry in today's game, you've got something. So I think if he can put those things together at the lower levels, you'll see him work up. But also another game I can't believe I forgot to mention, started run on here, but it's Travis Sikora. Travis Sikora is a beast. I have seen this guy in person, and it was just unveiled that he was pitching this entire last season where he was one of the best pitchers in minor league baseball with a hip injury all season long. He dominated. I mean, he literally rode the Fredericksburg Nationals to a Carolina League championship. I mean, the guy is legit. So he's going to be shut down, I think, until May, and then he'll work his way back up and rehab there. But he is certainly someone I think will fly through the minor leagues. And maybe if he's just that dominant, you might see him up in September. But he's one guy that everyone is excited about here in DC.
I have to note, Jarlin Susanna. I saw some stats today about him. He threw, I think he hit like 102.7 in spring. Something crazy like that. So another name who came back in the Soto trade that people don't talk about. I
wanted to mention him also, but I was running on too long there. But yeah, Harleen Susanna. He's
Harleen.
60, okay. It's fine. He's like 20 years old. He's 6'6", and it's not just like, oh, he touched one of like this guy. You guys know Paul Skeens. Like, everyone raved about Paul Skeens. He's not going to be Paul Skeens. I'm not going to say that. But this guy consistently reaches one-on-one as a starter. He's a starter for now, but like his stuff is insane.
So 107 as a closer or something like that. So
yes, yeah. This guy's, I'm telling you, man, this guy's really good. So we'll see if he is a starter overall, but if not, then he's gonna be a nasty closer. I can tell you that much.
Ryan, what about a pick to click? I got some names in mind, but who on this Nationals team right now is going to help take them to the next level?
The easy answer would be James Wood and Dylan Cruz. I mean, both former #1 overall prospects. But I'm going to go with a little bit of a sexier pick. I'm going to go with second baseman Luis Garcia Jr. Ooh. This guy put up a really good offensive season this past year and was a former top 100 prospect, and he's still really young. I think he's 24, about to turn 25 years old. And it just all clicked for him this past year. Like, he was really good defensively he was solid defensively over at second base. But what he did with the bat, I mean, he showed a little bit more power. He showed a little bit more poise to the plate and just looked confident. And the year prior in 2023, Mike Rizzo sent him down after the trade deadline, and everyone was stunned because like the time was now for him. Like, we were all expecting him to kind of take off. Then he sent him down to AAA, and everyone was stunned by the move. And he came back this past year. He hit the crap out of the baseball, was by far and away the most consistent offensive piece for this team. I expect him to build off that this year, and hopefully, maybe fingers crossed, gets an extension with the organization who can finally keep some homegrown talent here in DC.
Nice. I love that pick. Yeah, it's great. I mean, if he can cut down on the chase and walk a little bit more, he like squares up pretty much everything.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's like we saw it at times this past season also. Like, yeah, the numbers may not reflect it, but like he did get better in that department. And again, as you were saying, like if he barrels up the baseball, which he did pretty well this past
Yeah.
season, like he's got a little sneaky power. Like he can hit 20 home runs pretty easily if he can do that. But also just put the ball in play and good things will happen. And we saw that from him in 2024. I think he can do it again in 2025.
All right. How about going into this season? What is the biggest what if? What is the biggest question mark on this roster that you're uncertain about?
My biggest what if right now is really with this bullpen, guys. And we were talking about it a little bit earlier on in this show today. And like, what if this bullpen just completely crashes and burns? Because there's just so many like what ifs on this team. Like, we are not sure about a guy like Jose Frere, who I'm really high on. Like, I do think he will be good, but like, what if he gets injured? He has had an injury history in the past. Like, what if Kyle Finnegan kind of goes back to his former self? He was an all-star this past season, but what if that just completely goes up in flames? I mean, it's baseball after all. And then I also look at the power. Like, what if the power is not there yet again entering 2025? That's going to be a huge frustration for the Nationals fans. It's going to be a huge frustration for the organization because they do think it will be better. But those are my two big what ifs as we enter 2025 here.
Ryan, before we let you go, let's get a prediction for this year. It could be overall team record or for a certain player. What do you have for this team going into 2025?
Right now, I've got them winning like around 78 games here. I think they will be better. They're going to be better than that 71 win total this year. But kind of the theme of the show today and the theme of this whole team going to 2025 is just about setting that core of young guys. So if you can see CJ Abrams, Luis Garcia Jr., Keibert Ruiz, all these young pieces for this team and really the talent that you've acquired over these past few seasons kind of come together and gel. That's what this is going to be about in 2025. So yes, I do think they will be better. I do think they could be a little frisky, but it's going to be about those young pieces.
Love that. Love that. I think this is going to be a really fun team to watch, especially offensively this year. It's going to be a fun team to watch on MLB TV. So, excited for the 2025 Nationals. But Ryan, appreciate you coming on and talking about the Nationals with us. And hopefully we can do this again soon.
Of course, guys. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks, Ryan.
Seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates, or the steak by the plates and